Oi, my name is Shobek and welcome to the TBC Rogue Macro on the Keybinding Guide. Oi.
What's up, boys? It's the long requested TBC Rogue and Macro Guide. Let's jump right into it, man. I'm someone that spent the past 4 to 5 months fine-tuning these things, okay? I'm someone who needs to make it perfect, and if it's not feeling fluent, if it doesn't feel organic, I have to change it because I want to play Rogue at like the fastest pace. I want it to like literally just feel fluid. So these key bindings, again, are personal preference, but if you want to copy them, I'm telling you, they're great key bindings. And if you want to take some as inspiration, I'll explain to you about them all and why I have them there. So without further ado, let's jump into the key bindings. First up, I have a Logitech G602. We're going to be doing the top bar. These are like the main cooldowns first. So what I have is my front bind right here where my thumb is. This is my Shadowstep, and then my back one is my kick. So I have them in conjunction with next to each other as well. So when I know, because a lot of the times in TBC Arena, you're going to be Shadowstep kicking a lot. So I have them next to each other. So I know like where to look, boom, instantly look down to the left. That's where my Shadowstep is up. And that's where my kick is. So I can get that information and know when those abilities are up. And then I also have them right here. And then it allows you to be insanely fast. It's like almost as fast as a freaking macro, dude. You can just like literally boom, 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 boom. And then I have a shift modifier for my focus. Now, I'm not somebody who does Arena 1, 2, 3. If you do Arena 1, 2, 3, it's the same thing. You just do shift and then you boom, boom for the 2. And then that's like for like what, Arena 1, 2. And then shift would be Arena 2. And then maybe control, or if you like do alt. Whatever your modifiers are, that's your thing. It's not really my thing, but it's still the same. If you have a mouse with 2 buttons, I highly recommend to have the kick there, because when you're not, say for example, when you're not on your when you're not trying to do a shadow step kick and you're just trying to kick, having that there, because your thumb is always resting on it and it's completely separate from your left hand. So you can strafe, you can do everything. You can stay on top of your target. You can prepare yourself for like the next ability that you want to load. Maybe you want to kick and then you want to wait till or then evasion, or you want to vanish, or whatever it may be. Your right hand is now focused on that, and you can still do everything you need to do with your character movement. And I think that's really, really important. And so that's why I made the kick and shadow step there as well. To note with, for example, warriors, a lot of the times you're going to be going in and you're going to be shiving. So it's really important to be able to strafe both left and right with your character. Okay, you're going to be absolutely, this is fluid. This is the most optimal binding to have shadow step either on your thumb or on your other your either thumbs, because this is going to allow you to be able to strafe left or right and never have to jump. I mean, if you can jump, but that's going to be an inefficiency. Or if you have a binding where you have to reach, it may cause an issue where you get charged. I had a shadow step on like A, and there was a problem where I couldn't strafe left side. I'd have to like jump. And then sometimes that jump would cause the system to register, and I would get charged by the warrior when I'm kiting him with a crippling poison. So the great thing is when you have the binding on your thumbs, you can still strafe your character in any direction. So it allows you to just shadow step and just instantly be there. And it's just super, super fluid. And again, with the kick too, like you're right there on point with the kick, and it goes so fast. The next one we have is a little squiggly. I think it's called like the Altas or whatever this thing is. I have this on Cloak of Shadows. This was a really interesting bind for me. It took me a while to decide that I wanted Cloak of Shadows here. And I'm going to jump into a few things on why I have it here. It is a little bit of a reach from, I do play QWE, so it's a little bit of a reach. However, a lot of the times you're already, say for example, you want a Cloak of Shadows, a coil. You're already looking for that coil. So you're already having your hand on the cloak if you want to use it. It's fast enough to be there to be snappy and to be super responsive. And it's still also fast enough to be reactive as well and to be able to spam it. If you do like react to a coil coming in. But a lot of the times, say for example, like I'm opening on someone and I see this warlock here, I'm already looking. And the nice thing is I put my ring finger onto the little squiggly, and that allows me to still be able to Hemo. So if I'm opening on someone and I'm looking at the warlock, my ring finger's on Cloak of Shadows, prepping for the coil to come in. I can still cheap shot with my middle finger, and I have my kidney shot on 4, which means I can do the cheap shot. I can connect the stun while loading, like while looking for the coil and pumping damage. So I have all 3 fingers on Cloak of Shadows to prevent and outplay any CC, pumping with my middle finger to make sure that I get the combo points to connect the stun. And I can also press forward to connect the kidney shot to make sure the guy is still into the next stun. And I thought about all of this because a lot of the times I had my Cloak of Shadows on D, and what was happening here was like I wouldn't be able to load. I'd have to like, if I wanted to Hemo, I'd have to like let go of my finger on D to like prep the cloak coming in, and then I'd have to like that downtime. There's been instances where I would let go of cloak to kidney and then move my finger back. Coil comes in, I get coiled. I'm like, okay, sick, awesome. Boom. That tilts me because it's not going to allow me to play the rogue that I want to play. Like I'm thinking it. I see the play that I want to outplay them, but I can't just because my bindings is causing an issue. So I think Cloak of Shadows there is an incredible binding. Next we have Will the Forsaken. So this actually is a really, really cool binding, and it's in conjunction with all of my shivs, and it's super important here. This is going to be a kind of a big rant as well. So my shivs are 1, shift 1, and shift 3. And then Will the Forsaken is on 2. A lot of the times when you get Will the Forsaken, like when you get feared and you're using Will the Forsaken, you need to be able to like instantly continue, like you're getting peeled off and then you want to get right back onto your target. So the reason why I have like wounds and Mind-Numbing on shift 1 and 2, not only are they great abilities or great key bindings for you to be able to stay on your target. For example, like shift 3, this is gonna be a little side tangent because I'm gonna be going in depth on the shivs, and then we'll circle back with the Will of Forsaken because it'll actually make more sense. So wound being on shift 3, the thing is great with this is it's again another binding that allows you to strafe left and right and have full control of your character. The reason why I don't have it on shift 1 is because wound you're gonna be using all the time. On druids you're stacking wounds, on warlocks you're stacking wounds, on warriors you're stacking everything, you're stacking wounds. So it needs to be something that you can control your character 100% of the time with absolutely no downtime, no having to let go to strafe, because any TBC, it's so particular. One step back, one millisecond stuck on a tomb, 1 millisecond you have to let go of something, and a druid gets an extra step forward and you're out of range, you can't shiv. It ruins everything. At least for me in my experience, it really does. It just, the game is lost. Like you have to be fluid, you have to be on top of it, especially as a rogue. So with wound on shift 3, it's in my opinion my favorite binding for any of my shiv my shiv macros and abilities, because it allows you to have that control. So I have Mind-Numbing, and the reason why Mind-Numbing is on shift 1 is because it's super it's there, it's snappy, but it's also pretty particular when you want to use it. And a lot of the time, say for example, I'm on a priest and I get feared off. Sometimes I want to, like, you know, when I'm on a priest or a warlock and I'm getting these fears off, I want to add a Mind-Numbing poison. And so there's a lot of times where like I get feared, I Will the Forsaken, I'm already holding shift, so I'm already holding my modifier, and then I'm just going right into my poisons. Whether I get my Mind-Numbing poison and then I swap over to wound, and then I'm just pressing 3. I'm pressing 3, and I use my middle finger. And I hold down my 2 clicks on my mouse so I can control my character, and then I use my middle finger to press the wound, and then I can swap right back. So I can, like, it's so nice and fluid when you get feared to press shift 2, and you're already, because you're pretty much like all the time when you're getting feared off, a lot of the times, like, the next ability that's coming in is usually a shiv poison. Whether you're stacking up wounds, if it's a priest, you're just like, yo, I'm about to cuck you, dog, I'm about to just hit you with the Mind-Numbing and you can't dispel it. Like, it feels so nice to just press shift 2 and then you're already in shift, and like you're going into your Mind-Numbing or wounds. And then if you want to get a crippling off, right, you just let go, and then you're just pressing 1. Like, you literally press shift 2 and then 1, and that's like, it's just right there. And you guys know how to, you guys know how to press 1. It's a super fluid binding that's just like right there, and shiv is really, really important. But that's why I put shiv on 1, and that's why I put wound on shift 3, and then Mind-Numbing on shift 1. So that took me a while to get like everything connected because that felt really, really, really good. Next, we have D on Trinket. D is one of the highest priority binds. I think R, D, and F are like the cream of the crop. This is your pointer finger. This is the fastest reaction time. You'd be able to there's no other key bindings that you'll be able to respond faster with. So I have D right underneath. And the next binding I have that we'll talk about is it's gonna be F and R. It's kind of funny, they're all next to each other. So we're gonna have D, F, and R, the top priority key bindings. So D is my Trinket. And the reason why I chose D for Trinket, F for Blind, and R for Vanish is I actually had it backwards before where I had Trinket as R, Vanish for D. But I noticed a lot of the times, say for example, a rogue is opening on me, right? I'm in a cheap shot and he bleeds me. I need to be able to, and like say for example, like I need a cheap shot or I need a Trinket and I want to like Vanish and cheap shot. It's important to have the D or the Trinket on D, because if you have D on Trinket and then R on Vanish, your finger is already moving closer. And if I go into stealth, my two and one are pre-med and cheap shot, and then I also have Garrote for 5. So say for example, like I need to Trinket, I'm already moving my finger up, which I think it's easier to move your finger up, and then I'm moving it closer to Garrote, and then also I have now with D on Trinket, and then I press R for Vanish. I now have my middle and my ring finger already loaded on premeditation and cheap shot. So in one fluid swoop, there's literally no downtime. As I'm pressing D and I want to go for the Vanish, my fingers are already loading onto premed and cheap shot. So right when I press R for Vanish, I'm loaded and I'm ready to do premed cheap shot. And it goes so fast. It is insane. You can just literally and it loads. This is with 140 ping, bro, like, or 120 ping. And so that's kind of like the thought process. It's moving upwards, right? Because like a lot of times Vanish is like moving forward. So if I'm like Trinketing Vanish, like I do D, R, and then 2, 3, and I just load it that way. And then I also have F on Blind. And Blind is a really, really important ability. You need to have it snappy. Rogue duels, you need to be like right there, especially in arenas. You need to be blinding trinkets. You like, for example, druids, you need to be blinding their NS when they trinket. It has to be there. Or when they like right when they're in human form, you gotta be snappy, man. It's super, super important. Blind needs to be on an incredible keybind. And that's why I also have it on on F, because it's also next to Trinket. So a lot of the times, say for example, we're going to be going back to Trinket and Vanish here because, dude, these 3 keybinds, they play such a important role with each other. There are so many instances you're using all of them at the same time. Some people might be a little bit overwhelmed with it all being on your pointer finger. I personally have had 0 issues having them all on my pointer finger. So with Blind, say for example, F is just incredibly efficient. Say for example, you're in a kidney shot, right? A lot of the times rogues want to Trinket kidney shot. You can load. One issue is with this key binding with Trinket or with Blind on F is if I kidney shot with these key bindings, my pointer finger's on 4 and I have to drop down to F. That's the only downfall. But a lot of the times I'm already preloading the thought, so I'm just like I'm already there, and it's just one inefficiency, but to me, it has never caused an issue because again, the pointer finger is the fastest finger. So if I'm gonna have any sort of like inefficiency, I at least want it on my fastest finger, so there isn't that much of a delay in downtime. So I have to use cheap shot. And then kidney, but I can blind and then go right in over the global. And I think too, when you do kidney shot, it puts a global on yourself anyways. So on that downtime, when you do kidney shot, you can just move your finger down to F because like you can't just like cheap instantly blind, like there is a global. So that like downtime is definitely enough for you to like move your finger down and then be able to blind. So from here, it's really, really good to have D and F next to, or Blind Trinket next to each other, because I use it all the time. There's gonna be so many times you're gonna Trinket blind. Like you have to Trinket blind, and then you have to Trinket blind, and then you're gonna bet that he's gonna Trinket, and then you want to Vanish And like, say for example, it's a rogue, right? You trinket his stun, you make him antsy. He's like, oh, dude, you're fucking stupid, dog. You're gonna trinket my cheap shot, my kidney, and then you're gonna blind me, bro. You're nothing, right? So you trinket hella quick to make him feel that you're antsy, to make him antsy. You blind him, so DF hella quick. Then he trinkets, and then you just go right up to R. You load your middle finger and you load your ring finger onto pre-med cheap shot, and then you go him. He has no trinket. Boom, swap, and it's super fluid. Or say for example, you blind someone and you want to get a Garrote off, or like you want to blind someone else and then you want to like vanish and then you want to Garrote. You're literally blinding an off target and then you just vanish and you move up to 5. Again, I have pre-med on 2. And then the reason why I have pre-med on 2 is because it's my middle finger and I allow myself to choose 1 or 5 for cheap shot or Garrote, and that allows pre-med is kind of like the combo loader. So my thought process was have it in the middle for the ring finger, and then no matter which one I want to choose, if I want to go right and do Garrote, I just use my middle finger and then it loads the combo points, and that allows me to still have full control where I'm not like using my index to press 2 and then I have to use my my pointer finger. Say for example, like I had Garrote on 3, I would have to press. I would have, say for example, I would have to, like, if I had something different where I'd have to press this with my same pointer finger, that would give me downtime. I couldn't press like with my pointer finger 2 and then 3 because that's going to cause me to be delayed and that's going to cause my Vanish to break. Things need to be able to be separated so you can use them on your own fingers. So if you use Vanish and you have dots on you, say for example, you have like 3 dots, you have like 2 rogue bleeds and a fucking priest dot, you need to be able to vanish immediately. And you need to make sure that you're going to give yourself the best opportunity where you're not going to have that Vanish break and you can get the cheap shot off. You can get the stun. So you have things spread out and connected on the different fingers. So you have 0 downtime between them. And that's why that is there. And the G on Trinket and the F on blind, it's just so snappy and it's so fast. And then you just move your finger up if you want to do Garrote, or you want to move your finger up and hit the Vanish. Next we have preparation on T. This was like the biggest hurdle for me in regards to keybind decisions, which was like the top priority, like what type of sequence do I want with D, R, and F. And then I chose preparation on T because a lot of the times in matches, say for example, I'm gonna be like opening on a mage, or I'm gonna be opening on a warlock. Just like a lot of times rogues, you're going to be finding yourself just like opening with Garrote and then just vanishing out. And what's really nice about preparation on T is I use my first opener, I hit Garrote and then I vanish, and then immediately I pop prep and it's right there. Boom, TR, RT, boom. And then from there I have, we'll talk about the next 2 things, which is evasion and in sprint. I have evasion and sprint on C and V, and I press these with my thumb. So this allows me to use both of these key bindings while having no interference with my character control, which is, again, something that you need if you want to, use these key bindings as inspiration, or just take anything from this. I really feel that character control is something that is super overlooked and it's super important. You want to be able to have the biggest key bindings allow you to have this character control, and it's super important. Going back to the Shadowstep and the warrior situation, it's really important to be able to use evasion on any sort of strafing, whether it's left or right. It's very, very important, especially even with backpedaling when you're going up against a warrior and you have to face him all the time. Say for example, he's trying to get a disarm on you. It's just really, really important to be able to use that evasion, and you don't have to you're not forced to commit to a specific strafe or like legit stop while you're chasing a druid around a fucking Nagran pillar just so you can press evasion and then you can continue continue kiting. That 1 down second, or committing to like a jump on one side of the pillar, making you go a little bit more wide while he's perfectly strafing around, it's just gonna create a gap, and that gap is gonna be enough for him to live. So I think it's super important to have these things, and I have it all in conjunction. So now I can press T, and then when I press T, again, you're going to find yourself where your whole hand is pretty much off the keyboard. You're for a very brief moment. Your T is literally like you're reaching and you're committing a lot to it. You can kind of stretch, now that I'm looking at it, your middle and ring finger on 1 and 2 to preload your Vanish into cheap premeditation, which I think I do subconsciously now. This is kind of the first time I'm talking about it, which is, again, another really great thing about R for Vanish, because you can just preload everything. And then, you know, if you want to use Garrote, you literally just Vanish, press 2 and then 5, and like it's literally, you just move upwards and it's right there, super snappy. But it's just super nice to have the V and C on evasion and sprint, because you have that character control. And once you do that first Vanish, you can immediately go into preparation. And what that does is it allows you to do a couple things that I see not a lot of rogues do. Is a lot of rogues overlook when to like actually preparation. And it's really important that you prep sooner and you're on top of it, because a lot of the times, like, you'll open and then you'll use your Vanish and then you'll save prep for like evasion or something like that. Or like maybe a Shadowstep or something. And then next thing you know, you're going to get opened on, or like you need to make like a micro play and you're going to have to like load prep in, and then that's not going to allow you to like Vanish something or be there. So it's just really, really nice that it's right there. And when you want to go back to Vanish, say for example, I do this all the time. I'll use that first Vanish and then I will pop my prep, and then say, for example, like the rogue opens on me, and then I have to be like ready for that Vanish. And it just allows you to just be boom, 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 like RT, RTR, RTR. So there's a lot of times where you're hitting Vanish, popping prep, and then hitting Vanish again. Say, for example, you want to Vanish a rogue's blind and your Vanish gets eaten. You need to be able to like Vanish the rogue's blind and then pop prep and then Vanish again to open on him. And it needs to be super snappy. And again, you can press the T and you can already have your fingers on C and V. And you get full control of your character. The next one is the focus gouge and gouge. I have this on A. This took me a really long time to figure out why I wanted it on A. And I use gouge a lot, and I wanted it to be somewhere comfortable, but I didn't want it to be somewhere that's super priority. And I chose A. I actually don't like using A. Some people love using A, and it's actually like a priority binding for them. I actually don't like using A too much, but it has been getting something that I've been getting a little bit better at using. And I use a shift modifier for shift A, and this has really just done the justice, because a lot of times, you know, you're opening, your mage is coming over, something like that. You just, walk in and then you hit the A, and then the guy's now in gouge. Very, very nice, especially with, wanting to outplay rogues trinkets, whether it's like a cheap shot into a gouge or like a kidney shot into a gouge. Or for example, you have a mage and like the mage is in a sap and he's just like chilling. And then you hit cheap shot and he's like, what, bro? I'm gonna trinket and then, or blink. And then you just jump in front of him and you hit a gouge, and then you gouge his blink. And he's like, what the fuck, bro? You're like the best rogue I've ever seen. So A allows me to have that experience and still feel super fluid and snappy. It's never felt like it wasn't fast enough. And it really, to me, has just felt super, super fluid. And I'm really happy I chose A. The next we have are the focus kicks. Again, these are just the shift modifiers. And then I have blind for shift blind. My focus is shift blind. So I do everything for focus is just the same key binding as a modifier. And I don't use Arena 1, 2, 3. I played for like 15 years and I've done tab targeting. Sure, tab targeting screws me. But you can definitely help yourself by going over to Keybindings and scrolling down to targeting and swapping it to target nearest enemy, so you don't target pets or totems. To me, that it really makes it like literally just perfect. And as rogues too, it's not the same as casters where you're changing sheeps. Like when you're a caster, I think it's a little bit more important to use Arena 1, 2, 3, just because I feel like you're just constantly like swapping, oh, we got to change the CC chain up, like we need to swap this up, or you need to see as someone else, and like it needs to be there. Because like rogue, you have to use shadow step kick, so it's a little bit more of an investment, and depending on who you're going on, you need that step to stay on top of your target. So that's why I just do everything as shift, and I use a tab. Shift 5 on this character, I actually don't have the weapon. I deleted my guy just to have a new hairstyle. So shift 5 is actually my titanium weapon chain, and this is a really cool key binding because it's a super unique situation when you're going up against warrior druids, where you use weapon chain and then you load a wound poison on it as well. And I have it as shift 5 because it's super It's super niche, and it's still like right there and snappy. And my go, which is my number 5 right here, this is my Trinket. I just have it as a shift modifier, and it's kind of clear for me, right? I have shift 1, 3, and then I just go over to 5. I don't have shift 4 as a poison because I actually use it as Feint, which is kind of coming up on the Keybindings, and we'll just actually talk about it right now. You use Feint in a lot of warrior druid situations. So for example, there are a lot of the times when you're cheap shotting a druid and you're about to kidney him and the warrior wants to intervene, you're going to feint the druid. It'll absorb the intervene, and then you can kidney the druid. And it looks something a little bit like this. So like right around here, he wants to do that. So you're going to feint the end, and then you can kidney shot him. And that's going to allow you to absolutely just blow him away. He'll be like, what the fuck? And you're like, yeah, dog, I just feinted that. And he's like, holy shit, dude, what? So yeah, feint's really, really cool ability. You're going to be using it a lot. A lot of the times you will be actually using throw on a druid. I think that's the most ideal, but that's only if you have distance. You know, you can't throw here. So if you're like on the guy, you don't want to like off step to try and like throw that. You know, it just makes more sense to just hit the feint on the intervene. And then you'll just leave him speechless. You'll be like, oh shit, dude, he just outplayed me. And you need that. You need that on a super snappy keybind because it has to be there. Right, the intervene is in a moment's time, and he's charging you, and he's intervening, and he's probably going to go defensive stance and try and disarm you. So you need to intervene, right, which is on shift 4. Well, guess what? You're going to kind of notice what happens when you reach over to shift 4. At least for me, my thumb is now right under C. Guess where C is? That's right, evasion. So now I shift 4, I feint, and shift 4. All I have to now do is let go of my pinky, boom, into kidney shot. So warrior intervenes. I feint it. Evasion. Right there. I can respond immediately. Right? And then guess what? I just press 4. So it's all it really is shift 4, C with my thumb, and then 4. And that's perfect. That's fluid. That's exactly what you want. You're not pressing. You're not going crazy. You're not reaching everywhere. It's literally your pointer finger is staying exactly the same place. You're pressing thumb, which is pretty in a pretty normal position for where your thumb is, depending on because you're reaching up to 4. Whether even if you're in ASD, you're reaching up to 4. Your thumb moves up, your hand moves up to reach 1 through 4. And I'm QWE, and so I play QWE, and my thumb naturally just always rests on C and V. But if you're playing ASD and you reach up to 4, your thumb is already there naturally, because your hand's moving up. So it's super fluid. So that that whole play sequence was all thought out because there were times where I was messing up. All these keybinds are all connected for super high outplay moments, and they all are connected in that way because I wanted to be able at the highest level be able to be at the most efficient and just think about what to do next and not like where the fuck are my keybinds, and make it feel super fluid. So the next thing we have is my B, which is my Ukidniu. This is my Shadowstep kidney. This is really, 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 really important. So I have everything still separated, and I'm a believer of being everything separated. I don't like putting macros into things. The only thing I really do have is my go, which is just my PvP trinket, really. I don't even know what's actually in my Berserker call. Hold on one second. Macros. Cold blood. Okay, so my go was literally just attached to when I was playing Mutilate. So essentially, I don't have anything bound or like macroed other than this. But this is the only one that's an exception. When you macro Shadowstep kidney, the chances of it missing is a lot less. So it's just faster and it's way more snappy. You have to use Shadowstep kidney on a rogue if he has evasion up. If you do not have this macroed, it will dodge. It will dodge because of some sort of some sort of issue in the system. It will dodge. You have to use Shadowstep kidney on a rogue if he has evasion up. It is super, super important. You have this separate and macroed. It's very, very important. This will allow you to be super snappy. It's the only way if you're forced to kidney if you're forced to kidney through evasion, you have to have this macroed. Very, very important. Next thing we have is first aid bandage on Z. I use bandages all the time in arena. If you see my videos, I literally use it all the freaking time. I don't like Z. I don't like it. Z is my auto run in any other game. I now have Shift Z as my auto run, and I decided to make Z my gouge because a lot of times, I mean Z my bandage, because a lot of times I would what? Gouge bandage. And my ring finger is hitting the A, which is now controlling my target. So I can have the downtime and then just snap right down to Z, and that allows me to bandage. And it's actually been really, really nice. And I also been kind of getting used to pressing 4 and like, you know, just getting used to pressing Z, and it's now something that I'm actually super comfortable with. And so I do like that a lot because I needed it somewhere that it felt better. Bandage used to be on my B, like obviously B for bandage, but pressing Z for Shadowstep kidney was super ugly because I was like, what the heck am I doing pressing Z with my ring finger, or my ring finger, then like my middle finger pressing 2? I was just on some like weird shit. But with B pressing kidney, my thumb is pressing it, and then I can press 2 immediately. Like I'm pumping damage, right? So you press 2, you press B, and then your finger's already on 2. So super, super comfortable. And on top of that too, you can strafe any sort of way with your character, and you can press B. So that's my Feint, Shadowstep kidney, and my my bandage. Next we have my cannibalize, which is actually my scroll wheel up. I use this a lot in arena. It's really underrated. There's a lot of times where you're hitting resets and you can get that extra health off. It's really, really good. You want to have cannibalize on it. I promise you, in arena you will, and out in the world for world PvP, especially if you want to just like BM the hell out of someone, like some fucking gnome with some stupid name, and you want to like just BM the shit out of them. Yeah, cannibalize all day. You want to have it there. You want to. The important thing is when you're playing a rogue or like any class, you want to make sure you just have everything there. And there are moments where like I'm at 1% health, and I'm not even kidding you, I'll bandage for 1 tick, and then like the dot will break it, and then I will cannibalize for the next tick, and then the dot will break it, but I've lived. I'm not even kidding you, I've lived. Because what ends up happening is bandage absorbs 1 dot, and like 1 tick, cannibalize absorbs 1 tick, and then cheat death absorbs 1 tick. That's 3 ticks. That's 3 ticks I get to live through. And it's really, really important. And you use it all the time. It happens all the time. Super important you have this here. Next we have, dude, this actually took me a freaking while. This was really, really weird for me to do. Expose, armor, rupture, and slice and dice. You use all these things often in very unique situations. And honestly, when to use these things are a whole different video in it on itself, because it's super complex. And it really just comes down to like years and years and years of playing to like really understand. There are some standard scripts, but it really just feels like how the tempo of the game's going and how that is based on like what you want to use. So middle mouse, I thought was the best one for me to have on expose armor. It actually used to be on rupture for the past 15 years, and I just changed it for TBC to have it on middle mouse. I found it to be super nice to just open up on cheap shot and then press middle mouse for expose armor. I tend to use it a little bit more than rupture. And a lot of the times if I'm opening on like a rogue, for example, I can just cheap shot and then I can press X for rupture. And then my hands on my pointer fingers already on R. So say for example, like he wants to like maybe cheap shot early. I need to be ready to like respond to that, but I also want to still be able to rupture and get that off. I think in that specific moment, if that's what you really want to bank on, then middle mouse would be better. I changed it recently, but ended up changing it back because I actually like expose armor a little bit more on middle mouse and then X on rupture. I don't know if it's because it's muscle memoried, but if you do want to like respond to like a rogue's vanish and like you want to just straight up like, you know, cheap shot and like load the rupture and then have your finger on R, that's just, you know, everything is separated, right? Your mind's thinking, okay, your right hand's managing rupture, and then your left hand is managing your vanish to outplay his vanish and to ultimately break his vanish. So I chose with this though, because a lot of the times with that's like the highest outplay. That's the highest outplay efficiency with the keybinds, but I still chose middle mouse with expose armor because a lot of the times I'm going up against priests, I'm going up against druids, and I'm just using expose armor. And I like opening a little bit more and using expose armor as middle mouse instead of like opening and pressing X for expose armor. Just like a weird thing. And I also think it's also kind of tied in with like sprint being there. So like druids are always running away. So I don't want to like have to press, for example, expose armor or yeah, expose armor on X and then have to like, you know, move my thumb over to press sprint. It allows me to just be a little bit more efficient with the expose armor and just staying right on top of them. So that's why I do that. Shift T was just something I chose in PvE. I needed it to be out the way, but I needed it to be there. I was really nervous of putting it over preparation because there's a lot of times when you're doing key bindings that you might mess up, right? You might mess up and you might fat finger. I have never fat fingered. And I think when I'm pressing slice and dice, I've just gotten to the, I just never had an issue pressing preparation over slice and dice. Like, oh crap, I just wasted prep. That has never happened to me. So I've had this here. There isn't necessarily too much of a logic behind it other than it's kind of just like there and snappy. Obviously I could have put it on Shift D, but I want my fingers to at least be up and closer to my 1 through 4. And then also next to my Vanish, just in case if like I need to use it. Cause like say for example, I need to swap targets, right? So I need to like swap this. So Shift T for slice and dice, move my finger over R, Vanish 2, 3, open on the guy, hands super easy. Everything is incredibly fluid. So it kind of just ended up playing out like that. And I wanted it to at least be higher up instead of lower, because anything that's lower like D or like G, I have to then do that and then move up. And I don't want to move 2 rows of keys. I want to just move 1 row of keys. I don't want to do that much. Next over here, I have a third button here. It's a little like scope thing. And this is actually my sap. This is my spam sap. And then my shift modifier is my control sap, my focus sap, sorry. And then my C modifier is my druid cheap shot. So we're almost done with the key binding. So we'll go into a lot of these here in a little bit with the druid cheap shot. But this is my kind of like, I'm trying to find you in stealth. Also, if I want to do any sort of like Vanish sapping, or if I'm finding a druid, I will do my my control. And this allows me, again, full control of my character. I absolutely no issues with controlling my character, and I can still find the person. And it's really, really important when you're in stealth to have the full control, because you don't know when you're going to see your opponent, and you need to be able to fully control your character, or else your back may be to him and you'll lose. So say for example, like you're in stealth. I see a lot of people like they have 4, right? Like you can't be as snappy unless you want to like hold down, you know, your 2 mouse buttons, which I'm just like, I'm sometimes a fan of, but it just doesn't give you the right angles. And sometimes, and this is a whole nother video that you can go into, stealthing, there's actually an art to it. It's not just random. There's actually a way to stealth. In arena specifically, there's zones. And you have to look at an arena match in zones. And it's really, really important that you strafe in. Say, for example, this guy is I, and your mage is sitting in the corner, and you're going up against a rogue, like a rogue comp. You want to go wide, and you want to be strafing in, baiting that he is on the inner. He's more inside, so you want to be on the outer rim of where he would be at, and then you want to be looking in. So if he's looking anywhere, his back might be towards you. So like you're going more wide. Again, whole other video, but that's something. Just to quickly note, here we have shift. This is down. This is down scroll wheel for my health stone. The reason why I have this, I have it in conjunction with cannibalize. Cannibalize is scroll wheel up, and then health stone is scroll wheel down. All healing abilities, scroll wheel up, scroll down, heal me, awesome. And I have it as a scroll down because it's literally right there. I don't have to move anything, and it's super, super snappy. It's not affecting anything in regards to my character. I can use it in any which way direction. And it allows me to just like be super, super snappy with a scroll wheel. And I have Shift X for my food. This is, you want to have your food binded, especially if you play with a mage. You just always have your food binded. I know it sounds like a little meme, like, oh, what, bro? I just click it. Trust me, that half a millisecond is the difference of you getting a tick off or not, and you dying. Straight up is. I have 2 stealth bindings. Shift Italis is actually my binding to get out of stealth. So let's talk about Shift R. Shift R is my in stealth spammable. I can spam this thing and it will never break me out of stealth. And then I have my Shift Squiggly, which is where my cloak is, to get me out of stealth. The reason why I have it here is because I'm already pressing Shift and Shift R to get in, and then I'm strafing. And if I want to just get out, it's a lot of the times like if I'm going to be like running away from something, it's not like a big deal. It's a very offset binding that I just decided to use, and it's done me well. So I've been really enjoying that. And then Shift B for my oh, shout out to the all the people that want to play Alliance Season 4. You can still play any race that you want to play and still get good. Race doesn't ultimately define you. Just a little heads up. Anyways, Shift B for distract. You want to use this sometimes, but you want to be careful. It's turning into a little strat guide, bro. In TBC Arena, distract will actually show you a lot of the times rogues aren't going to be good at thinking 2 steps ahead when it comes to distract. Distract actually baits your location. So if I get distracted, a lot of the times they want the rogue wants the rogue to like come to you, unless like you're running away purposely. But a lot of the times, like, distract can show you the direction of where you're going into. And if it turns you, say for example, you're running this way and it turns you this way, sometimes it will literally tell you the person is going to be what? This way. And so it shows you the zone that they're in. So you want to be careful when you use it against other rogues in particular. But I think it's great. I think it's great to use for other things against like other players. Say for example, like they're pushing in, you want to, you know, distract to give that little second turnaround to be able to get a sap off. So you want it to have it somewhere where it does feel snappy. And that's why I chose Shift B. It actually was, before my Bandage, it was B on distract. And then I tried the Shift B for the focus. But I honestly felt like I was using the Shadowstep kidney way more. And so I decided to use Shift B for the distract. It's still there and it still allows you to use anything that you want. Like, for example, my sap is on my, again, mouse button. So if I'm in stealth, I can use my Shift B for distract while still spamming. So it's just like Shift B, boom, and I'm right there. There's no downtime. There's no moving fingers. There's no flipping the fucking keyboard, doing a kick flip. It's right there, smooth, snappy. Now that we're on it, let's just jump into the stealth bindings. So with the stealth bindings, I have 1 on cheap shot and 2 on pre-med and 4 on sap. If you look on my activation abilities, a lot of the times it took me a while to set this up, but a lot of the times I was vanishing and it was breaking and I was blowing like a cheap shot. I was blowing a kidney shot or I was hitting gouge. I actually had gouge where my cheap shot was below. So like a cheap shot would break and then I'd gouge the person. Not only does it put them on a DR, but it sinks the shit out of my energy. So I needed to make sure when I use cheap shot and when I use Garrote and when I use sap, when I come out, you see this little delay when the little thing moves down. You got to make sure that's not going to cuck you and mess you up by blowing something. For example, you're like, well, why don't you just have like, you know, Garrote on 3, bro? It's like easier. Well, guess what? If my Vanish and I went for Garrote and it broke and I used Eviscerate and there was already combo points on the person, I just blew my combo points, blew my energy on Eviscerate, which doesn't do like any damage in TBC, and I just screwed myself over. So the reason why I have everything spaced out is, well, if cheap shot breaks, what's the worst case scenario? I Shiv. Okay, I'll accept that. It nets me a combo point. And then what's the worst thing if I use Vanish Garrote? Well, a lot of the times, if I'm Garroting for a second a time, I probably have already used my go, so this will probably not even affect me at all. And so this is probably like, if it's original opener, I'm going to be using 5, and then I just press 5 again, and then I go, and it's super nice. It's super sick. And then if it is a Vanish Garrote, well, the go is probably already on cooldown. Worst case scenario, it breaks, and then I use my offensive ability. So it's kind of like, for me at least, I needed to decide what was like the worst, like what's the least thing, because there's going to always be things that are going to go wrong. There has to be, you know, we're humans. We only have so many hands. There has to be some inefficiencies. So which is the less? So I thought of cheap shot for my crippling, and then I thought my go for my Garrote on the off chance. And I've never had an issue. And then I do sap on 4. And the reason why I do sap on 4 is because a lot of the times you're not sapping a target with combo points up. Maybe you are sometimes. But if it's like, if you're vanishing and you're going to be sapping a focus target, he doesn't have any combo points on him. So you can't kidney shot him, right? Like if I'm drilling this dude and I want to do this and then I want to vanish and I want to sap, right? He's not going to have combo points. So if it breaks, nothing's going to happen. It's just going to null. So that's why I have sap there. We can go into let's go into my other keybinds, then I'll wrap it up with the shiving, why I have it there, and then we can go into the macros. So next we have the mounts. I have mounts on 6. It's a little bit of a reach, but you're going to use mounting a lot in arena, so you want it to be somewhere where it's not a priority by any means, but you need to be able to use it, because sometimes the difference of you having a shit mount or clicking for it will literally be the cause of you dying. Say for example, someone gets an eye and they're running over to you and you don't have sprint, you don't have Shadowstep, you have to match them. If you match them on Nagran Arena around the pillar on the mount, you'll be able to get that timing. Maybe the dot falls off and then you can get the sprint and then you can go for the sap or something like that. So you want the mount to be there. Shift C, I looked at it as like a modifier for my evasion. It is a modifier for your evasion. So I use that. So a lot of the times what I'll do is like, I'll do C and then I'll do Shift C. And then that feels really fluid because I'm just literally pressing C and then Shift C and then I'm getting both of them. And I use them a lot on top of each other. It's great for hunters, great for druids. And you're saying hunters, scatter shot. If you use evasion or ghostly strike, it reduces the chance of their scatter shot landing, so they can't do the scatter shot trap. Very, very important. And then also with like warriors for disarm, and then druids for their bear sons. So I have it right there. And again, I can control my character in every which way. Super, super important. Next, we have deadly throw, which you're gonna be using a ton because it silences, which is super sick. The reason why I have it at G is because I look at deadly throw as kind of like a fadeaway, and G is definitely a reach, but it's a fast reach for me. And so I use it as like a fadeaway where I commit to that strafe, and then because when you're on a target and you want to use deadly throw, you have to run out. You're committing to one direction. So that's why I have it on G, so I can load the direction with the jump and then wait till the feed. If you look at G, you see right here. So right about here, I jump and then I put my finger on G, and then right when it's in range, it's there. So I can have it on a farther bind, but act as if it's the fastest bind. And that's the actual thought process, and why I call it like a fadeaway, because you're committing to that direction, and then you can just literally have it right there, and then you go right back in. And then I have Shift G as a modifier. You'll be using this all the time on rogues, keeping them in combat, especially like other players. I think this could be a little bit better, but honestly, like the throw, to me at least, I've never had an issue. Some people use focus throws as well. We're about to jump into that here in a second. But to me right now, I just use a normal one, and I'll just use tab or click on the arena 1, 2, 3. Next we have the 1 through 5. So I chose cripling. For number 1 because it's super snappy. You know, we grew up pressing 1, spamming 1 since day 1, legit. So I have crippling because it allows me to be on the target. I can't strafe left, which is a little bit of a downfall, but I think it's like the lesser inefficiencies. I'm slowing the target anyways while I'm using it, so it makes more sense to just have it on 1, take my finger off of Q to hit it, and then be able to go right back and to be staying on my target. I have 2 on Hemo, and the reason why I have 2, again, remember the Cloak of Shadows. It's really, really good to have that. You can control your character in any which way. Very, very good, especially with Shadowstep. Again, with the Warrior, Shadowstep Hemo, you can do it any which way you want if it's on 2, and that allows you to be fluid, right? Your Shadowstep allows you to be fluid. Your Hemo allows you to be fluid. That allows you to be fluid. So another thing we have next is Eviscerate. You're going to be using Eviscerate every now and then. And I have it on 3 because it's right there. It needs to be there. It's snappy. And I've also had this thing for like literally 15 years. I've changed my Eviscerate from 1 to 3 in A, and it's been sticking on 3 since. Next, we have Kidney Shot. Again, it's just a great staple. Great keybind. You're moving off a strafe, but you're locking your target down when you use it. So it's really, it's okay to not have it, like on 2, for example. I think it's better to have Hemo on 2, have that fluidity, and then have 4 on Kidney Shot because he's locked in. And then my 5 is my go. And another reason why I have it on that is because, say, for example, I Vanish and I want to cheap shot. So I do pre-med cheap shot, and then I press 5 with my ring finger. I can still press 2, right? And then I kidney, and my finger was on 5. My pointer finger was on 5, and then it just moves over to 2. Super easy, all right there. Not a lot of movement, and it's super fluid. Feels really responsive. and super intuitive, and that's what we want to try and get here. So I think that covers it. I think it does. I'm pretty sure I covered the mind-numbing and wound poisoning as well as the instant poison, and we'll actually jump into that in the macros. So here we are with the macros. These are kind of your standard script macros. I think these are really important for you to use, and there are some that I will also note that I don't use that I think that are pretty good for using. So first we have the equip slot 17 Shiv macros. I have 4 of these. I have crippling, instant, mind-numbing, and wound poisoning. These are all really, really important to use. As a rogue in TBC, you will be using these all the time. They're super, super important. And the reason why I do equip slot 17 is so I'm not having Shiv on a binding and then pressing a different binding to equip the weapon and then pressing a different binding to equip another weapon to then like use Shiv again. To me, it doesn't make sense to like swap to 2 different bindings when you can just spam one binding that equips the weapon slot. So for example, let me show you. If I want to use wound poisoning, I press shift 3 and then I just press shift 3 continuously and then that shifts. And then if I want to swap to wound, as you can see, it swaps to my fist and then I just do that as well. So to me, that is a lot more streamlined than having to go back and forth in between having one Shiv ability and then having a one Shiv ability and then having different weapons that you swap back into. So like, for example, my titanium weapon, I don't use this titanium weapon as a Shiv macro. This is literally a weapon slot equipped. Like I literally just equipped the weapon. So that just doesn't make sense. For example, like 1 to be Shiv. So I press shift 5 to then press 1. Like that's so janky. Shift 5 then 1 and then like go back to like what, shift 6 or something. It's just, yeah. I highly recommend doing this. It's gonna be a lot easier. Next, we have the show steal tip. This is the Druid Chipu. The Druid Chipu is really, really good when you're in stealth and you're trying to find a Druid. It's the same thing as your sap, but just with cheap shot because, well, you can't sap a Druid. So this is really, really good. And on beta, I don't have premeditation. I actually add premeditation to it. This allows you to have the full combo points, allows you to save your energy if you're doing double DPS or if you're playing with like a priest. You need to gouge, get the priest over here or the mage or the warlock, whatever. You need to get your teammate over to the druid while they're being slowed and attacked by the warrior or whatever their partner is so you can set up. So it's really important to have the pre-med on it. Next we have is the focus gouge, right? Pretty standard. Focus sap, again, pretty standard. You're going to be using focus sap all the time on targets. Focus step, again, very standard. Focus blind, standard. F Kiku, super standard. This is a little bit interesting with the Eviscerate and Hemo. I have Start Attack on. Reason why that you want to have Start Attack on is you want to just make sure that you're constantly on top of your weapon swing timers and you're not doing anything that's going to be resetting them. Sometimes you can Eviscerate and it'll stop the damage. And that'll be the difference of you being able to finish someone off or not. Sometimes there were moments where I would Eviscerate a Druid and he'd have a little bit of health left. And guess what? I didn't have a Start Attack and it literally didn't attack afterwards and he got away. Because I didn't get the white swing. White swings are really, really important TBC. They add a lot of damage, and so you want them to be rolling and being as optimal as possible. So I'm always on these things. I'm pressing Hemo to make sure the start attack is up and queued, and then I also have it on Evisuru, and the Evisuru will also make sure that I Eviscerate. It will also start attack. So I'm always on top of the target. The instant poison Shiv. This is really, really particular. Whenever you're going toe-to-toe with a rogue and you guys both have evasion and ghostly strike, if you swap over to your instant poison and spam Shiv, you'll be doing more damage against your opponent. Shiv isn't going to miss. It may resist, but it's not going to miss. It does Shiv damage and the poison damage. Instant poison has the highest damage output out of all the poisons, even wound. So it's really, you're going to catch the rogue off guard and you're going to really see a difference in the damage when you guys are pretty much both just dodging each other, spamming Shiv. You will see a difference, I promise you. This is going to be, all right, so this will be the sap macro. Again, the actual content of the macro might change, especially because we're going to be on the modern client with WoW. But just to focus on the macro in itself, you want a sap macro to find other rogues in stealth. Tab target, I know it's the good old faithful. She doesn't do as well as these macros. It's going to be able to find the rogue a lot faster. Especially when you do Garrote openers or like opener vanishes, you need to be able to say, for example, like you want a cheap shot, right? You want to vanish and like, you know, the rogue's going to be in a certain location. You want to spam that macro. So once that rogue comes in, because like, oh shit, the rogue's opening, you're right there and you're able to like get the sap off and then go right back on the target. So that's another macro that you want to be using. Again, this is a spammable stealth that you're not going to get knocked out. The Shadowstep kidney shot, which we talked about in the Keybindings earlier, as well as the eviscerate start attack. There are a few other macros that I recommend using that I don't use currently. And that is a Vanish cheap shot Vanish premeditation cheap shot macro. This will allow you to be able to cheap shot kidney shot a focus target incredibly fast. This is really good for twos. A lot of the times it's called, I personally call it covering. And what you'll do is you will be on an opponent, and say, for example, like you're going up against rogue druid. This is just an example. And you're killing the druid, and right now the rogue is following you, and you want to set him up for like a bait on his trinket, or you just want to cover and you want to get him in CC, and you're a rogue mage and the rogue is on your mage. You can do cheap shot into a full kidney, right? And then you want to leave him. Out of this, you can actually sap, or you can blind, or you can sheep or set up whatever CC chain that you want for your comp, but it's called covering, and it's really, really good. So when you have a set focus, right, and you're say like you're on the druid and the rogue's on the mage, you can press that binding where it will vanish cheap shot pre-med, and then you can also have a focus target or a focus macro for kidney shot. Me personally, again, as I stated earlier, I'm a little bit more old school, and I just use the tab targeting. I find in the moment that I'm just able to use the tab target and not have any effective issues. But if you specifically are someone who wants to be the macro fiend and have that efficiency, and just like the streamline, same thing with like the Shadowstep kidney, I recommend adding those two. But guys, that's going to be about it. If you made it through the video, I promise you these bindings and these key bindings and macros, they're going to help you as a rogue. You're going to see improvement. If you like the video, go ahead and like it. Make sure to subscribe. We stream every single day on Twitch. And as always, guys, much love. I'll see you on the next one.